Alright, welcome back. Welcome back to video number 3 in my series on my favorite artists. Now, one thing I have to do right now before I carry on any further is I have to show a Fritzetta picture that I forgot to show earlier. And the reason why I'm showing it is because it actually is my favorite Fritzetta, and that's this one right here. Just had to show this. I realized I forgot earlier, and this one's so cool. In fact, I'm even thinking of getting this one as a poster. I think this one's worthy of getting a poster and hanging it up. I mean, wouldn't you agree? I mean, look at this one. You know, a guy in a sled being pulled by polar bears with a sword. I just wanted to show this one because this is my favorite Fritzetta. Alright, now with that said, moving right along, I want to move on to my next most favorite artist. Now this one's actually more of a team, and it was a team of 3 artists, I believe, and they had a number of assistants who worked for them. It was actually called Hypnosis, and Hypnosis was a group of artists, so 3 artists mainly. The main one was an individual by the name of Storm Thorgerson, Norwegian, although he lived in England. And he was an artist. From what I understand, he had lived right near Roger Dean for a while. And I believe they both went to the Royal Academy of Art, and might have even been at the same time, because I do believe they're pretty close to the same age. But, yeah, from what I understand, Storm Thorgerson had passed away a few years back, but he definitely left behind, you know, a fantastic legacy of artwork, and there's no denying that. And I'm going to show some of them. I mean, he is an album cover artist, and that's primarily what he's done. I don't recall any novel covers that he had done. I mean, he did album covers. A documentary came out on Storm Thorgerson a few years back, and it said, like, the tagline was, he did the covers for half of your record collection. And, you know, it's probably pretty accurate. He did a lot of covers, and I kind of fell into it. It's kind of interesting. Apparently a friend of his had a commission to do a Pink Floyd album cover, Saucerful of Secrets. I believe that was the second Pink Floyd album. But I'm not 100% on that. It was Saucerful of Secrets, which is a great album, too. I happen to have that album. I think it's a great album. But, anyways, he was commissioned to do the cover of it. He turned it down. For whatever reason, he turned it down. Storm Thorgerson was actually eavesdropping in on the conversation at the time, and he said, well, if he's not going to do it, I'll do it. He just happened to overhear this, and they said, okay, well, let's see what you got. And he designed the cover of Saucerful of Secrets. The band liked it, and Pink Floyd agreed to use him, and is probably Storm Thorgerson's and Hypnosis's most famous album covers are the Pink Floyd ones. But I'm going to show one right now that this is my favorite. Right off the bat, you're going to see my favorite. It's this one right here. It was a band called Quartermass. And kind of heavy, you know, kind of definitely progressive. There was a song that some bands would cover called Black Sheep of the Family that was on here. I don't know if it was a hit or not. But I do know some bands did cover it, but this is a great cover. You have these buildings, you have these pterodactyls flying up or down it. It's just, I mean, classic, you know, classic Hypnosis album cover, without a doubt. It's another one of his I really like, too. This is the Alan Parsons Project, iRobot. Got these, like, people in these tubes, and there's this robot. That appears to be some kind of a drawing. People are going up and down in these tubes. Again, this is more of that, like, futuristic looking 70s space age design stuff that I like a lot. An earlier AC/DC album cover right here, Dirty Deeds. Designed that. And he also designed a Sammy Hagar album cover as well. Back when, this was after Sammy Hagar had left Montrose, he started his solo project. This is one of his albums. Believe, and I don't know if there's a title, but I believe this is just called the Red Album, from what I understand. This is a rainbow cover right here. And here's a cover that's very famous, very iconic. You've probably seen it. If you haven't seen it, you've probably been living under a rock, but most people probably seen this. Or, maybe you just aren't into music and, haven't seen a lot of album covers, but probably seen this one. Somewhere, at some point in time. And Storm Thorgerson has explained it like, with his covers and his images, you know what they are, you know what the image is, but you do not know why it is. And that's definitely the case with this image. You know what it is, you just don't know why it is. What is this? It's a man shaking hands with another man that's on fire. And definitely a very deep, heavy, symbolism going on here. My understanding is it has to do with Syd Barrett, who had left the band early on. There's another one. I just included this one because I had to include one from the band 10cc, because he did a lot of covers for the band 10cc. Makes you wonder what's going on here. I have no idea. This one is Wishbone Ash. Great album, by the way, too. This is a great album. I like the song Warrior off of this. This is Argos. Yeah, great album. There's one from UFO. This is the one from UFO that I probably like the most in terms of album covers. Always liked this one. The Phenomenon album cover. Hypnosis and Storm Thorgerson would do quite a few UFO covers. But this has got to be my favorite of them. Some sort of object in the air, like a UFO. But then it has people kind of, like that woman is kind of, she's not really focused on it. It's just kind of something unusual about it, Again, it's more of that, that esoteric feel or that kind of mystery where you just don't know what's going on here. This is the cover of the Black Sabbath album, Never Say Die. Storm Thorgerson did Black Sabbath, did some Led Zeppelin ones, did a couple Sabbath actually, did the one before this too. I should have printed that one out as well, I didn't, but it was Technical Ecstasy, because I do like that image. But after Technical Ecstasy, did this one with Never Say Die. So, and I like both those Black Sabbath albums, Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die. Those albums are sometimes regarded as the weaker of the Ozzy Sabbath albums, but I think they're great. I really do. Especially Never Say Die. It's a good album. So there are many more Storm Thorgerson, Hypnosis album covers. They did so many of Dark Side of the Moon, Momentary Lapse of Reason, the one that had all the beds all lined up. I think it was like 700 beds along a beach. But, yeah, Animals was another one. That Pink Floyd album with the cow on it. That's classic Storm Thorgerson and Hypnosis right there. You know what it is, you don't know why it is, really, and what does that have to do with Pink Floyd, and no matter, maybe the clever thing is the fact that it has nothing to do with Pink Floyd, so, who knows, but yeah, just so many. I mean, he's done covers for, Anthrax, Stomp 442, just a lot. Audio Slave was another one of the more recent ones. The Mars Volta is another. So yeah, so many, I think hundreds of albums. Primarily, like Hypnosis lasted from 1968 until 1983. But that was huge for albums, and people were buying, that was the album buying generation right there, and people were buying massive amounts of albums, and some of the best albums of all time came out in that time period. But then afterwards, Storm Thorgerson did continue, and he put out a lot of covers as well. As you can see, I mean, they are photographs, but they're just like designed in a certain way. He had a way of doing it. It has, like I said, that it has an esoteric or surreal quality to it. Really like this stuff, without a doubt. Now, since I'm talking about album cover artists, I'm going to go to another one, although this artist is not exclusively an album cover artist. This artist also did book covers as well, novel covers. In fact, it's probably what he's most famous. Well, I don't know. Probably what he's most famous for. And the artist I'm talking about is Don Brautigam. Don Brautigam is most famous for having done the cover of Stephen King's The Stand. I believe this is the one that won book cover of the year 1980. Now, I know there have been different covers for this. I do know that. Okay, now this next cover he designed, well, all I could say is, if you grew up in the 80s and you listen to metal, you definitely know what I'm about to show you. But he did design this cover, and that would be, as you can see right here, Metallica's Master of Puppets. This is Don Brautigam. He also did Stephen King. He did a number of Stephen King book covers, but he also did this Metallica one right here. Don't believe he did the other Metallica ones, but he did do this. Yeah, so my understanding is this, and another thing I'm going to say too, this is also one of my most favorite albums of all time as well, so I definitely have to mention this. I mean, some of them, this is such great album cover art, but the album itself is also really good. That's the case with this one right here. I mean, and an interesting side note, the painting of this actually sold at auction not too long ago for $35,000, the painting of this. So, yeah, it did. Metallica's Master of Puppets. I guess James Hetfield came up with the concept. Don Brautigam then had painted it. I always thought it was a pretty profound image. I really did. I mean, it goes along with the song Master of Puppets for sure. And probably a lot of people are familiar with Anthrax. Yet another one of the big four of 80s thrash. You have Anthrax. This is Among the Living. He designed this as well. You have this individual there. Not 100% sure who that guy is. It might have been the guy from Poltergeist, but I'm not sure. but it does look like them. And did another one for another band by the name of Motley Crue, the Dr. Feelgood album cover. Dr. Feelgood. Motley Crue's been getting some attention lately because they recently put out a movie on Netflix called The Dirt, which I've seen, which I'm probably going to do a review on, because I do think I could speak on that. This is the cover of it. Next is AC/DC's The Razor's Edge. Did that one as well. I don't think this is his best one, but this one I guess is pretty cool. This is the Firestarter book cover, Stephen King. Okay, so that is Don Brautigam. Covered quite a few artists. There was one I definitely like. Now, I'm going to do some Dungeons and Dragons artists. I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons growing up. I was a big fan of it. I even had an idea of maybe doing some videos on the history of it. Just haven't gotten around to it yet. But I really do like some of the artists that TSR had working for them. You know, I really do. And one of the first was an individual by the name of Dave Trampier. And this is some of what he did right here. This is a early D&D artist, the first edition. All that really cool art in the first edition. Some people like it, some people don't. I like, again, like I said, you know, I see the charm in this kind of artwork. I really do. There's something mysterious about a lot of it. You know, something kind of mysterious about it. You know, even though it may not be as good as a, you know, Fritzetta or a Larry Elmore, some of the guys that TSR hired later on, it does have a charm to it. It really does. It has that esoteric mystery kind of thing that I love. You know, it does. It really does. There's something unusual about it, and I mean that in a good way. Another one of his. Another cool one for all the reasons I mentioned before. Ditto with this one right here. There's a combat scene. See, Frank Fritzetta wasn't the only one that could draw a combat scene. God, this looks like a basilisk right here. A basilisk. More and more of his, He's actually a very talented artist. I mean, he really was. I've heard people say that, you know, they just thought the first edition artwork was bad, and I disagree. Like, for all, you know, because of what I said before, you know, it has a charm to it. It really does. Some of it has kind of a psychedelic feel to it as well. But, more Dave Trampier coming up. Almost looks a little tattoo-like, doesn't it? His Lizard Man, I always liked his Lizard Man. And his Goblin as well. Oh, and he did the cover for the first player's handbook. I had to show that. Another one I've heard people talk about before, I believe. Kind of a, I don't know if it's necessarily famous, but again, another compelling image. Dave Trampier. There's another one. This appears to be like a dwarf. So that's Dave Trampier. Now, a little bit about Dave Trampier. Dave Trampier had worked for TSR. I'm not sure if he had art training or not, but he did work for TSR. He also had a comic in Dragon magazine called Wormy, and worked for TSR for a bit. Then he just kind of disappeared, and no one knew what happened to him. No one knew why he left TSR. Now, I have heard people who have worked for TSR kind of say what they believe may have happened, and it may have had something to do with the fact that TSR owned the rights to his images, and he wasn't really told that they would own it in the beginning, or they didn't do a really good job of like delineating that, or they didn't that much in those days. So he kind of thought he had the rights to his artwork when apparently he didn't, and you know, I guess he was upset with that, and that kind of led him to become kind of reclusive for a while, and he became a cab driver in Carbondale, Illinois, in southern Illinois. And, you know, apparently someone got in his cab and they were doing some sort of a ride-along. They were a journalist and they had printed his name in the paper. The person didn't know who he was, but they printed his name in the paper, and then some people recognized the name. And then they got in contact with him, and sure enough, it was the Dave Trampier who had worked for TSR. And, you know, I guess he agreed to go to a convention and I guess, you know, meet fans and talk with them about stuff and, you know, all that. Unfortunately, he died 2 weeks before this happened. So, yeah, definitely wanted to talk about Dave Trampier because he definitely did some great artwork. So, that was Dave Trampier. Now, usually when you talk about Dungeons and Dragons artwork, you kind of will talk about the two Daves, Dave Trampier, and the other Dave is Dave Sutherland. So that's the one I'm going to talk about next. I got some of his artwork right here. And again, he did some really cool stuff as well. I don't know a whole lot about him, but I did know, he was employed by TSR. Did some great stuff. And this is a cool image. Again, for all the reasons I mentioned before. Look at this. It's just, I don't know, it makes your imagination race, doesn't it? It really does. It's hard to imagine Dungeons and Dragons without this kind of artwork. It really it helps paint that picture in your mind. It really does. I think it's kind of important to have that. So it's kind of like a frame of reference, especially like combat scenes like this. Another good day for this guy. Okay. And, 2. Alright, so that was the other Dave. That was Dave Sutherland. Now, there's a third guy linked with them, and now would probably be a good time to present his stuff. Here it is. This is the next one, and of course, gamers are going to be familiar with these images, especially this one right here. Might even be familiar with the artist, Earl Otis. Really like his stuff. His stuff is great. Because he did add kind of that psychedelic quality that I like in art. You know, the art that I've been doing lately has kind of a psychedelic quality to it. And I definitely can appreciate his stuff. Another interesting thing, too, with Earl Otis is when he did these images, when he worked for TSR, he was actually self-taught. He had no art training. Now, since he's worked for TSR, he's actually gone to school and has gotten art training. But at this point in time, he didn't have any. So when he did all his most famous stuff, he didn't have art training. Another one of his. There's some kind of like almost like Lovecraftian type images. And here we got another one. I'll just kind of show his art. Right here, really great stuff. I mean, he's probably one of my favorites. Gamers would be familiar with a lot of these images I'm showing. Get a close-up on this one. Close up on this one. This looks Lovecraftian right here. But yeah, really like his stuff. And I'll get to the other D&D artists that came later on. Quite a few images, and you have to admit, I mean, this is really good for, you know, self-taught artists. And it wouldn't be D&D without an owl bear, right? I'm going to get some of those. This one right here is famous. And this is one of his more well-known images right here. This is from the Deities and Demigods book. We'd probably gather that most gamers are familiar with this. You know, they would know what they're looking at if they saw this. They did a lot of stuff in this. And he had even done work for I believe this was a video game company, I want to say, that he worked for. This is that same image I showed earlier. There's a TSR on it. So, That's Earl Otis. Again, really a big fan of his artwork. Again, for all the reasons I mentioned, he has that psychedelic kind of esoteric feel to it. Really like what he did. But that's all I have for this video, just part 3. Please join me in my next video, part 4. Thank you.